morning air carried the hum of distant traffic and the smell of freshly cut grass. On a quiet street in Maplewood Heights, a modest neighborhood where every lawn was trimmed to perfection, Alicia Monroe was finishing her coffee by the window. The soft hum of her refrigerator was the only sound in the kitchen, until a black SUV rolled slowly into view. Her instincts, the kind she thought she'd buried years ago, stirred at once. The vehicle wasn't one she recognized. Its tinted windows hid the faces inside, but the way it crept along the curb told her this wasn't a friendly visit. She set her mug down and moved toward the door, every step quiet and deliberate. Two men stepped out of the SUV. Both wore navy jackets with shiny city housing enforcement patches that looked too new, too perfect, like they'd just been printed yesterday. One carried a clipboard, the other a bulky tablet. They had the stance of men who wanted to project authority, but didn't quite know how to carry it. Alicia opened the door before they could knock. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone even, calm, the way she used to sound when she wore a badge. The taller man smiled, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Good morning, ma'am. City inspection. We've had a few complaints about violations on your property. Mind if we take a quick look around?" Alicia crossed her arms. "Violations? What kind of complaints?" "Overgrown shrubs, improper fencing, and vehicle storage," the man said smoothly. He held up the clipboard like a judge showing evidence. "Standard stuff. Shouldn't take long." Her gaze flicked to the supposed city emblem on his sleeve. It was wrong, the color, the design, everything. Whoever had made it didn't know the real insignia had gold borders, not silver. She didn't smile. "Show me your ID." The man hesitated a fraction of a second too long before flashing a laminated card. It looked official enough at a glance, but Alicia caught the font mismatch instantly. Years in law enforcement had taught her to spot forgery in the smallest details. This ID, she said quietly, wasn't issued by the city. The shorter man shifted behind his partner. "Ma'am, we're just trying to do our job. You can cooperate, or you can face penalties. Up to you." Alicia didn't flinch. "My job used to be dealing with people who pretended to have authority. You're not city employees, and you're not setting foot on my property." The taller man's smirk faded. "Listen, lady." The sound of the front gate opening interrupted him. Her 16-year-old son, Ethan, stepped outside, earbuds hanging around his neck, confusion written across his face. "Mom, what's going on?" Alicia didn't turn. "Go back inside, sweetheart." But the taller man seized the moment, addressing Ethan directly. "You live here, son? You might want to tell your mother these violations can lead to fines, maybe even eviction." Ethan's expression changed, uncertainty flashing across his eyes. "Eviction? For what?" Alicia's voice hardened. "Inside, now." He obeyed. The men exchanged looks, frustrated that their little intimidation trick hadn't worked. "Yes, ma'am," the tall one said, lowering his voice. "Don't make this difficult. We're here for everyone's safety." Alicia stepped closer, so close she could smell the faint trace of cheap cologne beneath his jacket. "Safety doesn't show up without a warrant. Leave, before I call the real city office and tell them two imposters are pretending to be inspectors." Something in her tone, measured, precise, unafraid, made the man blink. He straightened, then jerked his head toward his partner. "Fine, have it your way. We'll be back." They turned, walking briskly to the SUV. The tires crunched against gravel as they pulled away. Alicia stood in the doorway until the vehicle disappeared down the street. Only then did she close the door and let out the breath she'd been holding. Inside, Ethan hovered near the kitchen table, wide-eyed. "Mom, what was that? They said they were inspectors." She rubbed her temple. "They're not. And if they come back, you do not talk to them. Understand?" He nodded, but the unease lingered. "You think they'll come back?" Alicia looked out the window again. The street looked normal. Kids biking, sprinklers misting over lawns. But something in her gut told her this wasn't over. "Yeah," she said softly. "They always come back when someone stands up to them." That night, Alicia sat on the edge of her bed, the glow from her phone lighting her face. She scrolled through city records, looking for inspection notices, officer rosters, anything that might explain the visit. Nothing. No department under that name existed. From the hallway, her husband, Marcus, appeared, holding a mug of cocoa. "You've been digging for hours." "What's going on?" She handed him her phone. "They claim to be city housing inspectors, but they're not on any list." Marcus frowned. "So what were they after?" "Intimidation," she said flatly. "Probably a scam. Pretend authority. Scare homeowners. Get them to pay fake fees. Happens more than people realize." He sat beside her. "You think it's targeted?" "I don't know yet." She hesitated. "But they knew my name. They called me Mrs. Monroe before I even opened the door." Marcus looked away, uneasy. "So what do we do?" Alicia's eyes hardened. "We prepare." The next morning, she woke early, checking the street from the upstairs window. The SUV was gone, but something else caught her attention. Two neighbors talking by the curb, glancing repeatedly at her house. When they noticed her watching, they turned away. She closed the blinds slowly. "So that's how it's going to be," she muttered. By afternoon, she'd installed the old dash camera from her police days above the porch. Marcus raised an eyebrow when he saw it. "You think they'll be stupid enough to come back?" She nodded. "Bullies always are." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, a shadow crossed the driveway. Alicia froze mid-stir at the kitchen stove. Through the window, she saw a black SUV idling by the curb again. Same make, same plates. Her pulse quickened, but her expression stayed calm. She reached into the drawer, pulled out her phone, and hit record. A soft knock echoed at the door. This time, Alicia smiled faintly to herself. "They want a show," she whispered. "Then, let's give them one." And with that, she walked toward the door, unafraid, prepared, and ready to fight this battle her way. Alicia opened the front door slowly, her phone still recording. The same two men stood outside, but this time they weren't pretending to be polite. The taller one, clipboard still in hand, didn't even bother to fake a smile. "Evening, Mrs. Monroe," he said, his voice oily. "We're back to finish what we started." "Funny," Alicia replied, leaning against the doorframe. "I didn't realize harassment was part of city protocol." The shorter man let out a half laugh. "Lady, you can play smart all you want, but the rules apply to everyone." Her phone's red light blinked steadily. "You're on camera," she said simply. That made them pause, the taller one's jaw clenched. "You think a video's gonna save you?" Alicia's expression didn't change. "It'll save enough." For a moment, the air between them felt like a wire pulled tight. The only sound was the faint rustle of wind against the maple trees lining the street. Then the men turned and walked back to the SUV, their shoulders stiff. As they climbed in, the tall one muttered something to his partner, too low to hear, but his glare stayed fixed on Alicia. The tires screeched as they drove off. She closed the door, locking it with steady hands. Then she whispered, "Now I've got you." Later that evening, Marcus came home from work to find Alicia watching the recorded footage on her laptop. The video captured every second. Their fake badges, their body language, the way they avoided her questions. "They're not just scammers," she said. "They're organized. Look at their posture, the way one watches while the other talks. That's training." "Training?" Marcus repeated, setting his briefcase down. "You think they're cops?" "No, but they want people to think they are." She zoomed in on the SUV's license plate. The numbers were clear enough. "I'll run this through a friend in records. If that vehicle's tied to anything shady, I'll find it." Marcus hesitated. "Alicia, this isn't your job anymore." She glanced up at him, her eyes sharp but tired. "When someone threatens my family, it becomes my job again." The next morning, the neighborhood felt different. Too quiet. Ethan was getting ready for school when he stopped by the window. "Mom," he said slowly, "Mrs. Henderson didn't wave today." Alicia joined him. Their elderly neighbor stood by her mailbox, eyes darting nervously toward the Monroe house. When Alicia waved, the woman quickly turned away. "They know something," Alicia murmured. "You think those men talk to them too?" Ethan asked. "I think they've been talking to everyone." By midday, the SUV was back again, but parked 2 houses down this time. The men stayed inside, pretending to check a clipboard. But Alicia could feel their eyes on the house. She grabbed her camera and stepped outside, watering her front plants as if nothing was wrong. The men didn't move, but the tension in the air was thick. The taller one pretended to look at his phone, while clearly watching her every move. After a few minutes, she waved cheerfully, deliberately, and called out, "Need something inspected today?" The passenger's door opened. The shorter man leaned out, his voice laced with fake charm. "Just routine checks, ma'am. Don't mind us. Period. C." That evening, her phone rang. "They target families who don't back down easily. This coordinated." So this is coordinated. Looks that way. Could be tied to real estate scams. Force people to move, buy the properties cheap, resell fast. You might be their next target. Alicia tightened her grip on the phone. Then they picked the wrong family. "I'm assigning a patrol car to pass by your street. And Mrs. Monroe," the detective's tone softened, "keep recording. Don't engage. We're building a case." "I'll try," she said, but both of them knew she wouldn't just watch. Well, that night she sat in the darkened living room, laptop open, scanning news reports of property fraud. A pattern began to form. The same vague company name, Urban Renewal Associates, appeared again and again in public sale records, always after intimidation complaints. Her pulse quickened. "So that's who you are," she whispered. Marcus walked in quietly. "You're still at it. They're forcing families out, flipping their homes and walking away rich," she said, "and they use fear to do it." He rubbed his face, exhausted. "What if you're next on their list because you fought back?" She looked up, determination in her eyes. "Then I'll give them a fight they won't forget." The next morning, she checked the footage again. Something new caught her eye. One of the men, the shorter one, wearing gloves this time, had placed a folded paper under their mailbox before driving off. She slipped on her jacket, walked outside, and retrieved it. The message was short and typed in bold letters. "Move out while you still can." For a long moment, she stood on the curb, reading those words over and over. The neighborhood around her looked ordinary, lawn sprinklers ticking, kids laughing, but everything felt wrong. Marcus stepped onto the porch. "What is it?" She held up the paper. A warning. He looked pale. "They're escalating." Alicia nodded slowly, folding the paper in half. "Good. That means they're nervous." That night, The storm finally broke. Rain pounded the streets as thunder rolled across the sky. Alicia sat by the window, watching the driveway, her phone and flashlight beside her. Marcus was upstairs with Ethan, trying to keep him calm. At exactly 10:14 p.m., headlights flared through the rain. The same SUV stopped in front of the house. 3 silhouettes this time. Alicia's hand hovered over the phone. She hit record and whispered, "Not tonight." She grabbed her jacket and stepped outside into the storm. Rain plastered her hair to her face, her jacket clinging to her shoulders. The men froze as she approached. Lightning flashed, painting her face in white light. "You were told to leave," she said, voice carrying over the rain. The leader sneered. "We don't take orders from homeowners," she said. "Then take this as a citizen's notice." She raised her phone, red light blinking. "You're being recorded. 3 men, 1 black SUV, license plate." The shorter man cursed and lunged forward. Marcus's voice shouted from the doorway, "Alicia." Before the man could reach her, a police siren cut through the storm. Blue lights reflected off the wet pavement. The SUV's headlights blinked off. The men froze, caught mid-act. 2 patrol cars screeched around the corner, tires splashing water. Officers stepped out, flashlights drawn. "Hands up, now." The fake inspectors hesitated, then bolted toward the SUV. But one slipped on the wet asphalt, falling hard. The taller one tried to drag him up, but it was too late. The police had them surrounded. Alicia stood perfectly still, rain dripping from her chin, watching the scene unfold. Marcus ran up, his hand gripping her arm. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "They made the mistake I was waiting for." As the officers cuffed the men, Detective Cole approached, his raincoat soaked. "You were right, Mrs. Monroe. We've been tracking this crew for months. Your footage sealed it." Alicia's eyes flicked toward the SUV. "Then make sure it's the last time they ever drive through my street." Cole smiled faintly. "We will." But as the men were loaded into the patrol cars, one of them looked straight at her. His expression twisted into a promise. "This isn't over," he mouthed. Alicia watched the car door close, the red taillights fading into the rain. "I know," she whispered, "but neither am I." The storm had passed by dawn, leaving behind a soaked street glistening under pale sunlight. But peace hadn't returned. It had only gone quiet. Alicia Monroe sat at the kitchen table, a towel around her damp hair, staring at the coffee she hadn't touched. Outside, police cruisers still lined the curb. Officers walked back and forth, collecting evidence from the black SUV that had terrorized her family for days. Detective Adrian Cole stood by the door, slipping through a soggy notepad. "They're part of something bigger," he said. "These guys didn't act alone. They had schedules, property lists, target names, all printed with the logo of a company called Urban Renewal Associates." Alicia looked up. "I saw that name last night in county sale records." Cole nodded grimly. "Then you already know. It's a ghost company. No headquarters, no employees, no tax filings. But their name keeps showing up right before families move out under pressure. We think they hire intimidation crews like these. So they pick their targets," she said slowly. "Bully them into selling and flip the homes for profit." "Exactly," he replied. "You were supposed to be the next one, but you fought back." She glanced toward the window where Ethan stood watching the flashing lights fade. "They came after the wrong house." Cole closed his notebook. "They'll make bail. I'll have officers patrol the area, but you need to stay cautious. These people hate losing control." By afternoon, the street looked normal again, too normal. The neighbors who had peeked through curtains during the arrest now busied themselves trimming hedges, washing cars, pretending they hadn't seen anything. Alicia was planting hydrangeas when Mrs. Bruce Skill Henderson from next door finally approached. Her voice trembled. "I saw the police last night. Are you all right, dear?" Alicia forced a polite smile. "We're fine. Just dealing with some frauds." The woman wrung her hands. "They came to us too, a few weeks ago, said we needed to replace our fence or we'd be fined. My husband paid them. I didn't know what else to do." Alicia's smile faded. "You gave them money?" Mrs. Henderson nodded, ashamed. $2,000. They said the city would shut us down if we didn't. Alicia's stomach turned. "You still have the receipt?" The older woman shook her head. "They never gave one." Alicia exhaled sharply. "You're not the only ones. But it ends now." She glanced up and noticed another neighbor, Mr. Kelly, standing on his porch, arms crossed, watching them. When he realized she'd seen him, he turned and went inside. That night, Alicia spread every file across the living room floor. Marcus sat nearby, rubbing his temples. "You're building a case by yourself." "I'm building truth," she said. "Cole can't chase ghosts without proof, but I can find where they hide." She pulled up the public database on her laptop. "See this? Every time a family sells, under Urban Renewal Associates, the buyer name changes. Same initials. New company every few months." Marcus frowned. "So it's a shell chain." "Exactly. And whoever's behind it thinks they're untouchable." Ethan wandered downstairs, rubbing his eyes. "Mom, it's almost midnight." Alicia smiled faintly. "Couldn't sleep?" He shook his head. "Neither can you." She patted the couch beside her. "Come here. I want to show you something." He sat, and she turned the laptop toward him. Maps dotted with red markers. "These are families across the county. See how close they are? One block here, another there. It's like they're clearing land, piece by piece." Ethan stared. "But why us?" "Because we didn't scare easily," she said softly. "Bullies always test strength first. When they don't break it, they push harder." The next morning, Marcus left early for work. Alicia decided to visit City Hall herself. The reception area smelled of paper and dust, with fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. "Urban Renewal Associates?" the clerk repeated, typing. "No official records, ma'am. But," he frowned, "there's a matching P.O. box used by a development firm in Greenville called Glenridge Holdings." Alicia's pulse quickened. "Can you print that address?" The clerk hesitated. "Technically, no. But if you happen to see it." She slid a paper face down on the counter. Alicia smiled. "Thank you." She walked out into the sunlight, heart pounding. The address was a 30-minute drive away. By noon, she was there, an industrial park on the city's edge. A white sign with black letters read Glenridge Holdings, LLC, private property. She parked across the street, grabbed her camera, and zoomed in through the windshield. Men in suits walked in and out, carrying folders, shaking hands. And then she saw him. The tall fake inspector, the same man arrested last night. Out, free, and walking casually into the building. Alicia's chest tightened. "They already bailed him out," she whispered. Her instincts screamed. This wasn't over. This was only the surface. She snapped photos. The logo, the license plates, the security guards. Then she drove off, her hands gripping the wheel tight. That evening, she sent the pictures to Detective Cole. His response came within minutes. "How did you get these?" "Drove there. Watch them. Your man's back with his bosses." "You shouldn't have gone alone." "If I hadn't, we'd still be guessing." "Cole, stay put tonight. We're pulling warrants." Alicia set the phone down. For the first time, she felt both proud and terrified. She just crossed a line, from witness to hunter. That night, the neighborhood lights flickered as a cold wind moved through the street. Alicia stood by the window again. Marcus joined her, placing an arm around her shoulders. "You've done enough," he said gently. "Let the police handle it." She shook her head. "They'll stall. These people have lawyers and loopholes. By the time the system catches up, another family will be gone." He sighed. "You're not a cop anymore." Alicia turned to him. "Maybe not, but justice doesn't expire with a badge." End. Later, as the house slept, her phone buzzed with a text, an unknown number. "Unknown, you shouldn't have gone to Glenridge." A chill ran through her veins. "Unknown, next time your family won't be so lucky." Alicia stared at the screen, her heart hammering. Then she typed back, "Unknown. Alicia, then come find me." She turned off the phone, set it on the table, and whispered to the empty room, "Let's see what you do without your masks." The next morning, Cole arrived at her doorstep, jaw tight. "You got a threat text?" She nodded and handed him the phone. He scanned it, his expression darkening. "They know where you live, which means someone in my department might be leaking information." Alicia blinked. "You think you've got a mole?" He didn't answer directly. "Pack a small bag. We'll relocate your family for a few days while we move on Glenridge." Alicia looked toward Marcus and Ethan, who stood in the doorway, confused and scared. "You think they'll come here again?" Cole met her eyes. "If they're desperate enough, yes." Alicia exhaled, steady but cold. "Then I'll be waiting." That night, as they prepared to leave, thunder rumbled again in the distance. Alicia packed the laptop and hard drive, all her files. She paused by the window for one last look at the street. And there it was, parked across from the house, another black SUV. Different plates, same tinted windows. She smiled grimly. "You really don't learn, do you?" Rain started again before dawn. Slow, steady, deliberate. Alicia Monroe stood by the window, watching the dark SUV across the street through the curtains. Its headlights were off, but she could see the faint glow of someone smoking inside. Whoever they were, they wanted her to see them. Detective Cole's cruiser pulled up at 6:47 a.m., red and blue lights flickering briefly before he turned them off. He stepped out, raincoat flapping, eyes scanning the shadows. "They didn't even wait a night," he muttered. Alicia met him at the door, calm but fierce. "They think fear is a leash. They're wrong." Cole nodded, admiring her steadiness. "I've got a safe location for you and your family. Secure house just outside the city. No one knows the address but me." Marcus joined them in the hall, carrying a duffel bag. "How long will we be gone?" "Until we shut this down," Cole replied. Glenridge Holdings is being investigated by federal agents. But whoever's bankrolling this operation, they're powerful. Alicia's jaw tightened. Powerful doesn't mean untouchable. By mid-morning, the Monroes were in a caravan of unmarked vehicles heading out of Maplewood Heights. Ethan sat quietly in the back seat, earbuds in, but no music playing. He kept glancing at his mother in the front, trying to read her expression. "You think they'll come back to the house?" he finally asked. "They already have," Alicia said softly. "But what they don't realize is that now they're the ones being watched." Cole looked over his shoulder from the driver's seat. "You've got more grit than most cops I've worked with, Mrs. Monroe." Alicia gave a faint smile. "Once you've stared fear in the face, you stop blinking." The safe house was a cabin near a lake, surrounded by tall pines. Peaceful, at least on the surface. Cole gave them a brief tour. "We've got cameras, motion sensors, and a direct line to me. Don't open the door unless I call first." Marcus placed his hand on Alicia's shoulder. "Feels strange hiding." "It's not hiding," she said. "It's baiting." Cole raised an eyebrow. "You planning something?" She turned to him calmly. "You said they're powerful. That means they have insiders. Maybe one of them's watching your investigation." Cole sighed. "I can't deny that's possible, We've already lost 2 case files from the internal drive. Then we leak something fake, Alicia said. A false report. See who reacts. Cole stared at her for a moment. You were really a cop, weren't you? 15 years, she said, before politics ruined the badge. He smirked. Guess I found my new partner. That night, while Marcus cooked in the small kitchen and Ethan played cards by the fire, Alicia and Cole sat at the dining table, surrounded by files and laptops. Cole scrolled through police database logs. We traced Glenridge's money trail, offshore accounts, fake LLCs. But there's one consistent signature, a man named Jonathan Keene. Alicia frowned. CEO? On paper, yes, but Keene used to work for the city's redevelopment council. He resigned after a bribery scandal 5 years ago. She leaned back, connecting dots in her head. So, he knows zoning laws, property codes, inspection loopholes. He's using city knowledge to exploit families. Cole nodded. And the fake inspectors are his muscle. Then why are they still free? She asked. He looked away. Because someone in the department's keeping them 1 step ahead of us. The cabin went quiet for a long time. Only the crackle of the fireplace broke the tension. Alicia finally said, I can help you find the mole. Cole raised an eyebrow. How? Simple, she said. I still have friends in dispatch. I'll call in a false lead under a different name. Say one of the Glenridge men is hiding near the highway. If the leak's real, they'll hear it and run. Cole hesitated. That's risky. So is doing nothing. The next morning, Alicia borrowed Cole's laptop and made the call using an old encrypted app from her police days. This is Sergeant Monroe. Off-record tip. Suspect from Glenridge sighted near mile 12 of Route 9. Gray sedan, partial plate number 418. She hung up and exhaled. Now we wait. Within hours, Cole's phone buzzed. Dispatch just reported a gray sedan fleeing a traffic stop near Route 9, he said. It's them. Someone tipped them off. We've got our mole. Alicia's lips pressed into a thin line. You know who it is? He nodded grimly. Lieutenant Harris, Internal Affairs. He's been feeding taste details to Keene for months. Can you arrest him? Not yet, Cole said. We need a recording. Solid proof. Then let me get it, Alicia said. Cole's eyes narrowed. You're serious? Completely. That night, while the others slept, Alicia stood outside on the porch, the moon reflecting off the still lake. Every instinct in her body was alive again, alert, electric. She wasn't just protecting her family anymore. She was hunting corruption from the inside out. Cole joined her quietly. You remind me of someone I used to work with, he said. Never knew when to stop. Alicia gave a faint smile. Did she survive? He looked out over the water. Barely. They stood in silence for a while. I'll go to the city tomorrow, she said finally. Meet Harris myself. Cole blinked. You're walking into a lion's den. Maybe. But lions get sloppy when they think no one's brave enough to step inside. By sunrise, Alicia was already gone. She left a note for Marcus. Keep the doors locked. Trust Cole. I'll be back. She drove the borrowed cruiser into the city, heart steady, mind sharp. Every street corner felt like memory. The years she'd worn the uniform. The years she'd believed the system worked. Now, she was here to prove it still could, by tearing out the rot with her own hands. At the precinct, she found Harris in the parking lot. He was tall, mid-40s, with the kind of grin that pretended to be friendly, but never reached his eyes. Alicia Monroe, he said smoothly. I heard you've been helping Cole. Brave of you. She crossed her arms. Brave doesn't mean stupid. I know what you've been doing. His smile didn't fade. Careful. That sounds like an accusation. It is. He leaned in, lowering his voice. You think you can expose me? You're just a civilian now. You've got no badge, no power, and no allies. Alicia tilted her head. You sure about that? She tapped the phone in her pocket. The voice recorder blinking red. Harris's smile faltered for the first time. You're bluffing. Am I? He stepped back, eyes narrowing. You're making a mistake. Alicia smiled faintly. I usually do, right before I catch the criminal. She turned and walked away, leaving him frozen in the lot. Her pulse raced, but she didn't look back. She'd gotten what she needed. His voice, his words, his fear. The proof that the rot wasn't just outside, it was growing inside the walls meant to protect them. And she'd just lit the fuse that would burn it all down. The city skyline shimmered under a pale sunrise as Alicia Monroe drove back toward the safe house. Her fingers trembled slightly on the steering wheel, not from fear, but adrenaline. In the pocket of her jacket was her phone, still recording when she'd confronted Lieutenant Harris, the corrupt officer helping the Glenridge operation from within the department. The evidence was solid. His voice, his threats, the arrogance of someone convinced no one would dare touch him. She replayed a few seconds of the audio just to hear it again. You've got no badge, no power, and no allies. Alicia smirked. We'll see about that. Marcus met her halfway down the porch steps. Where were you? His voice was low but tense. You scared me half to death. I went to get proof, she said, stepping inside. And I got it. Detective Cole looked up from his laptop, worry flashing in his eyes. Tell me you didn't. I did, she interrupted. I recorded Harris admitting everything. He's dirty, Cole. He's the one leaking information. Cole rubbed his forehead. Alicia, you can't just... Don't tell me I can't. We've been waiting for justice that never comes. Now we have it. For a long moment, Cole said nothing. Then he exhaled slowly and held out his hand. Let me hear it. Alicia handed him the phone. The recording filled the cabin. Harris's smug tone, the veiled threats, the faint tap of Alicia's boots as she walked away. When it ended, silence hung in the air. Cole finally spoke. This is enough to get a warrant on Harris, maybe even Glenridge's files. Alicia folded her arms. Then use it. I will, he said, slipping the phone into an evidence bag. But we move carefully. They'll know you have this. By evening, the family tried to relax. Marcus grilled food on the small patio, while Ethan watched the lake ripple with orange reflections. But beneath the calm surface, tension hummed like an electric current. Mom, Ethan said quietly, why do they care so much about our house? There are bigger places in the city. Alicia smiled faintly. Because bullies don't pick the biggest target. They pick the one that fights back. The one that makes others brave enough to do the same. He nodded, understanding more than his years should have allowed. Around midnight, Detective Cole's phone rang. He answered quickly, and Alicia could tell from his face that something was wrong. What is it? She asked. He lowered his voice. The evidence you sent, the files gone from the internal server, wiped clean, and Harris disappeared an hour ago. Alicia's eyes hardened. He knows. Cole nodded grimly. He's running. Marcus looked up from the couch, alarmed. So what now? Now, Alicia said. We stop waiting for them to strike. But the strike came first. At 2:13 a.m., the cabin's power cut out. Total darkness. The refrigerator clicked off. The heater died, and the only sound was the rain beginning to fall again. Cole reached for his gun instantly. Get down. Alicia grabbed Ethan and pushed him toward the hallway. Marcus pulled the curtains aside, just enough to glance outside, and froze. They're here. Two vehicles, headlights off, rolled slowly up the gravel drive. Dark figures stepped out, moving with precision. Back up, Alicia whispered. Cole shook his head. Too soon. They cut the signal. Alicia's mind switched into tactical mode. Old instincts, firing like muscle memory. Basement, she whispered to Marcus. Take Ethan, now. Marcus hesitated. What about you? I'll cover the door. Cole glanced at her. You've done this before. Once or twice, she said quietly, retrieving the old service pistol she'd kept locked in a trunk by the stairs. The first knock came, polite, almost mocking. Mrs. Monroe, a voice called. We just want to talk. Alicia positioned herself behind the wall beside the door, finger steady on the trigger. Funny, she said loudly. You never call first. The silence that followed was thick. Then a crash. The door burst open, splinters flying. Two men stormed in, flashlights sweeping the room. Cole fired a warning shot into the ceiling. Police, drop your weapons! The intruders ducked behind the couch. One shouted back, You're outnumbered, detective! Alicia peeked out, eyes narrowing. She recognized the voice. Clipboard, the same fake inspector she'd faced weeks ago. Well, she murmured, guess you didn't learn your lesson. She kicked the coffee table aside, exposing one attacker's leg behind the furniture. One shot, clean, controlled, shattered the floor, inches from his boot. He scrambled back with a curse. Cole took the chance to move, flanking right. They've got body armor, he hissed. Then we aim for pride, Alicia replied. Downstairs, Marcus and Ethan huddled in the basement, listening to the muffled chaos above. Dad, Ethan whispered. Mom's up there. I know, Marcus said, gripping his son's shoulders. And she's not alone. A sharp sound cracked through the floor. Gunfire. Ethan flinched. We can't just sit here. Marcus hesitated only a second before nodding. He opened the emergency cabinet Alicia had insisted on installing weeks earlier. Inside, a flare gun, a first aid kit, and a small radio transmitter. He grabbed the transmitter, turned the dial, and pressed the distress signal. Somewhere miles away, a police station alarm blinked to life. Upstairs, the fight turned brutal. Cole exchanged fire with one intruder, while Alicia tackled the other near the doorway. They crashed against a bookshelf, papers scattering across the floor. You should have moved out, the man snarled, pinning her wrist. Alicia twisted sharply, breaking his grip and driving her elbow into his jaw. You should have stayed in your lane. He stumbled back, dazed. Cole shouted, They're retreating. The sound of an engine roared outside, the second vehicle reversing fast. The remaining man staggered toward the door, clutching his shoulder. Alicia leveled her weapon. Don't. He froze, blood dripping from his sleeve. You think this ends with me? She didn't blink. No. But it starts there. The man sneered and sprinted out into the night. Tires screeched as both vehicles vanished into the trees. The silence that followed felt heavier than the gunfire. Cole lowered his weapon, breathing hard. You all right? Alicia nodded, her expression unreadable. They came here knowing you were with us. That means the leak goes higher than Harris. Marcus and Ethan rushed upstairs. Marcus's face went pale at the sight of the broken door and shattered glass. Are you okay? We're fine, she said, though her voice trembled slightly. She placed a hand on Ethan's cheek. You did good. You stayed calm. Cole looked around at the wrecked living room. They won't stop now. We need to move again, tonight. Alicia glanced toward the empty driveway, headlights still fading into the distance. Her voice dropped to a whisper. No, We don't run anymore. Cole frowned. You want to lure them back? She nodded slowly. Exactly. But this time, we'll choose the battlefield. Later that night, after boarding up the doorway and resetting the power, Alicia sat at the table, surrounded by maps, blueprints, and the few surveillance tools she still had. Her hands were steady, her eyes focused. Marcus stood behind her, watching quietly. You look like you're planning a war. She didn't look up. I am. Parentheses. Cole leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Then we'd better make sure we win it. Alicia glanced at the shattered door, the jagged wood glowing under the dim lamp. We will, she said softly, because now they've made it personal. A morning after the attack, the forest around the cabin stood eerily still. No bird sang, no wind stirred the lake. It was the kind of silence that came after violence, heavy, expectant, waiting for something to move first. Alicia Monroe didn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by maps, surveillance photos, and a steaming cup of untouched coffee. Detective Cole entered quietly, his jacket still damp from checking the perimeter. They're regrouping, he said. We intercepted a police scanner hit. They know Harris is exposed. Glenridge's higher-ups will try to clean house before the feds step in. Alicia nodded, eyes locked on the map. Then we hit them before they do. Cole raised a brow. We? She looked up at him. You said it yourself. They've got eyes in your department. We can't rely on backup. It has to look like I'm surrendering, like I'm giving them what they want. Cole crossed his arms. You're suggesting bait. I'm suggesting a trap, she said, and I'll be the one holding it shut. By afternoon, the plan was in motion. Cole made a few quiet calls from a payphone, the kind you could still find in forgotten corners of gas stations. Rumors out, he told her when he returned. Word is you're ready to negotiate with Glenridge. Harris will carry the message for us. Alicia stared at the cloudy sky outside. He'll take it straight to Keene. Cole nodded. And Keene will come himself, thinking you've lost your nerve. Marcus, who had been listening from the doorway, frowned. You're really going to face him? I've been facing him since the day they showed up in our driveway, Alicia said. I'm just done letting him choose the field. The trap would be set at the old Maplewood construction yard, abandoned years ago when the city funding ran out. Rusted cranes, half-finished foundations, and the echo of forgotten work made it the perfect stage for confrontation. That night, Alicia dressed plainly. Jeans, black jacket, hair tied back. No armor, no visible weapon. But Cole knew her well enough to notice the small shape concealed at her waistband. You sure about this? He asked as they loaded gear into the truck. She smirked faintly. You're asking the wrong question. Then what's the right one? She turned to him. How sure are you? He exhaled. Let's find out. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows through the skeletons of unfinished buildings. The yard smelled of rust and old rain. Cole and Marcus took position in a half-collapsed office trailer nearby, watching through a narrow gap in the blinds. A portable surveillance drone hummed quietly above the lot, feeding footage straight to Cole's laptop. At exactly 8 p.m., headlights appeared. A sleek black SUV rolled slowly onto the cracked concrete, followed by another. The vehicles stopped near the center of the yard. Jonathan Keene stepped out first. Expensive suit, expensive smirk, the kind of man who thought money could buy gravity. Beside him was Lieutenant Harris, pale and sweating, his hands shoved deep in his coat pockets. Alicia walked out from the shadows. Her steps were calm, controlled, every movement deliberate. Keene smiled. Mrs. Monroe, you've caused me quite a headache. Then take something for it, she replied flatly. He chuckled. You're clever. I like that. Shame you didn't just sell your property like the others. Because I don't sell my ground to cowards. The amusement drained from his face. Do you know who you're talking to? I do, she said. A man who hides behind corporations and contracts, who pays thugs to scare families out of their homes. You call it business. I call it extortion. Harris shifted nervously beside him. Maybe we should. Quiet, Keene snapped. Then to Alicia, you think a single recording will destroy me? I own judges. I own cops. And when people like you disappear, nobody asks questions. Alicia tilted her head. Funny, because tonight, everyone's going to hear your voice. Keene frowned. What are you talking about? Cole's voice came quietly through her earpiece. Signals live. Alicia smiled faintly. Say hello to the city, mister. Keene. Across town, at a local radio station and 3 independent livestream feeds, Detective Cole's connection went active. The audio feed transmitted every word being spoken in that construction yard. Keene's threats, his confession, his arrogance. And within minutes, it began spreading. Phones buzzed, newsrooms lit up, reporters began calling the police department demanding answers. But Keene didn't know it yet. What's that supposed to mean? He demanded, stepping closer. It means, Alicia said calmly, that when the sun comes up, every family you stole from will know your name. Rage cracked through his polished facade. You think this is over? He hissed. He pulled a gun from his coat, aiming it squarely at her chest. It ends right now. From the shadows, Cole whispered, Hold. Just a few more seconds. Alicia didn't flinch. Go ahead. Pull the trigger. But the moment you do, your face, your name, and that recording will hit every newsfeed in the state. Keene hesitated. His finger twitched, but didn't squeeze. Behind him, Harris started sweating harder. Boss, he whispered, she's not bluffing. Keene shot him a glare. Shut up. Alicia's voice dropped to a razor-sharp whisper. That's what you told your thugs to say to me. Shut up. To my husband. To my son. To the neighbors you scared. But not anymore. Cole's voice came through her earpiece again. Steady now. We've got confirmation. Every outlet's broadcasting. Go. Alicia moved first. She kicked the gun out of Keene's hand, the shot going wild into the air. Cole and Marcus rushed from the trailer as floodlights flared on. Police. Drop your weapons, Cole shouted. Keene froze, stunned by the lights and the sudden echo of his own voice. His recorded threats booming through loudspeakers Cole had hidden across the site. You've got no badge, no power, and no allies. The words played on loop, his own mockery turning against him. Harris panicked, reaching for his weapon, but Marcus tackled him from behind, sending both men crashing to the ground. Keene tried to run, but Alicia caught him by the collar. Going somewhere? She hissed. He spun, shoving her hard, but she didn't fall. She met his eyes, calm, cold, immovable. You don't get to threaten families anymore. Sirens wailed in the distance. Real ones this time. The sound grew louder, closer, unstoppable. Teen's shoulders sagged. You think the city cares? You'll just be another story in the feed by morning. Alicia leaned close. Then it's a story I'm proud to be in. Minutes later, squad cars surrounded the construction yard. Officers poured in, guns drawn. Detective Cole stepped forward, showing his badge. Jonathan Keene, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, extortion, and obstruction of justice. Keene glared at Alicia as he was cuffed. You don't understand how deep this goes. She met his stare. I don't need to. I just needed to pull you out of it. As the officers led him away, reporters began arriving, their cameras capturing every moment. The live streams had done their job. Keene's empire was crumbling in real time. Alicia turned to Cole, exhaustion finally seeping into her face. It's over. Cole looked at her. For him, maybe. But there'll be others. There always are. Alicia glanced at the sunrise, bleeding across the city skyline. Then we stay ready. Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders, Ethan running up behind them, breathless from relief. Mom, you did it. She smiled faintly. No, we did. Hours later, as the last police lights faded from the construction site, Alicia stood alone for a moment, looking at the place where fear had tried to take root and where courage had finally answered back. The world felt still again, but this time it wasn't the silence of threat. It was the calm of justice. The morning light fell soft across Maplewood Heights, painting the neighborhood in gentle gold. For the first time in weeks, the Monroe house stood quiet. No shadows idling across the street. No engines humming at midnight. The storm had passed, but its echo lingered. Alicia sat on the porch steps, wrapped in a gray sweater, a cup of coffee warming her hands. The air smelled of wet earth and pine. Behind her, the screen door creaked open, and Marcus stepped out, setting another cup beside her. You've been out here since sunrise, he said. She smiled faintly. Guess I wanted to see what peace looks like. He looked down the street. You made it happen. We did, she corrected. You, Ethan, Cole, the neighbors who finally spoke up. It takes more than one voice to break silence. Across the street, life was returning to normal. Kids on bicycles, sprinklers ticking, a mail truck rumbling by. But people glanced at her porch now, not with avoidance, but with quiet respect. Mrs. Henderson crossed the street, clutching a basket of muffins. I thought you could use these, she said, her eyes watery. And I wanted to thank you. We should have stood with you sooner. Alicia stood, accepting the basket with a warm smile. What matters is you're standing now. Behind Mrs. Henderson, others emerged from their homes. Mr. Kelly, the man who once turned away, raised a hand in apology. You showed us how far we'd fallen, he said softly. We let fear decide who we were. Alicia nodded. Then don't let it again. Later that afternoon, Detective Cole arrived, exhaustion etched into his face, but relief in his voice. Keen's officially charged, he said, handing her a folder. Racketeering, fraud, conspiracy, intimidation, the works. He's facing decades. Plain text, damn, that boy's Alania resigned, but with the evidence you recorded, the feds will find him. It's only a matter of time. She closed the folder slowly. Good. Maybe then people will start believing justice still means something. Cole studied her a moment. You ever think about coming back? Law enforcement could use someone like you. Ass. My father was a contractor, but he passed. Now I think I've done my time in the uniform. Besides, justice doesn't always need a badge. Cole chuckled. You sound like my old captain, when the last visit before leaving their temporary refuge. The sun was setting, casting long, amber streaks over the still water. Ethan skipped stones across the surface, counting quietly. That's 4, he said proudly. Marcus smiled. Your mom used to be the champion at that, he commented. Alicia laughed softly. Still am. She tossed a pebble. It bounced 5 times before sinking. Ethan grinned. Guess bravery runs in the family. She looked at him fondly. Bravery isn't about not being scared, Ethan. It's about standing up even when you are. He nodded thoughtfully. So, what happens now? Now, she said, we live, we breathe, we move forward. That night, Alicia sat at the kitchen table with a blank notebook. She began to write, not reports or evidence logs, but thoughts, lessons. Fear grows in silence. Power hides behind false authority. But courage doesn't need noise. It needs truth. She closed the notebook and looked out the window. The stars shimmered faintly above the treetops. For the first time, the world felt still, not empty, but earned. Marcus joined her, slipping an arm around her shoulders. "You're writing again." "Just a few reminders," she said, "for whoever needs them next." 2 days later, the local news aired a special report. Alicia's story, anonymous at first, spread across the region. Former policewoman exposes fake housing syndicate. The footage of Keen's arrest played on repeat, and community after community began reporting similar scams. By evening, 3 more criminal rings had been exposed. Families from neighboring counties sent letters, messages, even small gifts to thank the woman who refused to back down. Alicia read one of them aloud at dinner. "You don't know us, but because of you, we didn't move. We fought back, and we won." Her voice broke slightly. Marcus reached over, squeezing her hand. "That's the sound of change," he said. Weeks passed. The Monroe's home was rebuilt, the door replaced, the porch repainted. The flowers Alicia had planted bloomed again, stronger, brighter than before. One afternoon, Ethan found her kneeling by the garden, dirt on her hands. "You think things like this ever stop happening?" he asked quietly. She paused, brushing soil from her fingers. "No," she said gently. "There'll always be people who think fear gives them power." "Then how do we stop them?" She looked up at him, her eyes warm. "By remembering what fear can't touch: truth, courage, and each other." He smiled. "Like you did." "Like we did," she corrected again. That night, the neighborhood gathered for a block cookout, the first one in years. Laughter filled the air, lights strung across lawns glowed golden, and the once silent houses came alive with music and conversation. As Alicia walked among her neighbors, people stopped her with words of thanks. One young woman said quietly, "You made us believe good people still win." Alicia smiled. Good people don't always win, but they never stop fighting. Cole arrived late, out of uniform, just a regular man holding a paper plate of barbecue. "Thought you'd like to know," he told her. "The DA's office wants you to consult on their community outreach board." Alicia raised an eyebrow. "You recruiting me again?" He grinned. "Maybe. Or maybe I just like knowing you're still out there keeping us honest." She laughed softly. "I'll take that as a compliment." Nodded teary. As the night wound down, Alicia sat on her porch, the glow of lanterns flickering across her face. The world finally felt whole again. She whispered to herself, "We faced them without fear, without hate, just truth." Marcus joined her, setting down 2 glasses of iced tea. "Thinking about the past?" She shook her head. "No, just grateful for the present." As the night wound down, Alicia sat on her porch, the glow of lanterns flickering across her face. As the night wound down, Alicia sat on her porch, the glow of lanterns flickering across the street, the porch light, the steady rhythm of peace returning. But in Alicia's eyes burned a different kind of calm. Not the stillness of rest, but the readiness of someone who'd learned what true strength meant. Because bravery wasn't the absence of fear. It was the refusal to let fear define you. And justice wasn't a badge or a courtroom. It was every ordinary person who decided that silence was no longer an option. If you've watched until now, remember this. Courage isn't loud, it's steady. It's the moment you choose to protect what's right, even when you're standing alone. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us good people don't need power to make a difference. They just need heart.